subtle. Wonder. FX3. Ooh. Alright. Oh boy. Alright guys, I watched a lot of videos on these two cameras and it took me a lot of research to figure out which one I might need and which one you guys might need. First, just to make this shot a little bit more spicy, let's haze it up with the smoke gene. So plain and simple, when I pick up these two cameras, they spark totally two different separate parts of my brain. Let me explain to you how this kind of helps my creativity depending on what my task is and how it might affect yours as well. So the FX3, this is my favorite do-it-all camera. I'm filming on the FX6 right now. I own the red Komodo. I have the S5 II. I do a lot of different things, and so I'm always kind of cycling cameras through, but this has been the camera that's kind of always in my kit. If someone was to send me onto a production blindfolded and not tell me what we're going to shoot at all, this would be my weapon of choice, only because it can literally do it all. For all the obvious reasons, from some of the best autofocus, how compact it is, the crazy image quality, the almost minimum rolling shutter that it has, to even the smaller things like full HDMI, to even the very subtle anamorphic support, which Sony, please give us more. You only give us 1.3 and 2x. There's 1.5x, 1.6x, 1.8x. You guys are missing majority of the other anamorphics, please. But again, this is kind of the most well-rounded camera that I've owned when it comes to anything from professional work to YouTubing to content creation, like whatever it is. Well, the ZV-E1 pretty much does almost all the same things except in a different form factor, which makes it a different tool. To me, this camera is for any content creator out there that wants the best video quality that they can get. It's that plain and simple. Before we get into that, I went to a local powwow and I took the ZV-1 just to be inconspicuous. So let me show you the video I made for that real quick. If you're not into it, just skip to the next part. I'll have chapters down below. We'll get into more comparisons, but when I took it to the powwow, the reason I took it is, one, I feel like the FX3 kind of still stands out too much. I almost took my Komodo X to get, the top-notch quality that I own right now. But again, I wasn't sure if I was allowed to film there or not, so I want to be inconspicuous. Even the FX6, I almost took that, but once again. So with this thing, like, no one's going to think I'm a professional if I'm carrying this thing around. But I did have the Laowa 75 to 180 millimeter, which is kind of a big cinema lens. But even then, people weren't really batting an eye at me. What I wasn't expecting was for the ZV-E1 to give me the same exact experience that I would get on the FX3, but even better in that situation. Let me explain. Part one, the touchscreen. Sony's actually giving us more options in this camera. Obviously, we have a lot more buttons and dials on the FX3. But on here, you don't have a lot of those, but it was cool because straight from the screen, I could simply get to a lot of those options, and I could change the options that kind of matter more for when I'm just kind of, winging it and just kind of having fun with it. Especially for someone that's going to be vlogging, going into like documenting whatever you're doing. Just having this touchscreen just makes life way easier because you don't have to kind of fiddle with these knobs over here. You can simply just click, and it's intuitive for most people that I think are going to gravitate towards this camera. Part two, this is probably the biggest thing for me that kind of just was an epiphany when I was going through the footage, the internal mic on this. And this will pick up majority of your stuff that you need if you're someone that's just trying to do content creation or vlogging. All right guys, so right now I'm filming on the Sony ZV-E1 and the Tamron 20 to 40 millimeter f2.8. I think this is going to be my go-to setup for when I want to film my road trips and BTS stuff. But anyways, I set the mic to the front manually just by clicking the screen here because I'm a control freak. But let's just change it to the rear mic. Let's see how that's canceling out the front of the mic. And now let's go to the back. And so this is me talking from the back of the mic. So you can see if you're trying to vlog and then document whatever situation you're in, this is going to be the go-to here. And has all these built-in AI smart features, so it can kind of pick up if your voice is coming from the front or from the back. So on that Powell film, all that audio came straight from this mic. When I went into it, I wasn't really thinking about me capturing audio. I was easily able to mix and master the audio coming, again, straight off of this. I didn't even change the audio settings or anything on it. It just did it all by itself. Part 3, the form factor. Again, we're getting the same exact image quality in this that we're getting with the FX6 that I'm filming on right now and the FX3, but it's way more inconspicuous. So there's a lot of times where I need to get BTS, and sometimes the FX3 is being used for BTS. And I've always been kind of scared of it because you're having to hand it off to BTS shooters, or I'm just putting on a tripod and just leaving it out there. This is one of my workhorse camera. Like, this camera is twice the price of this camera. I much rather leave this camera out there. It doesn't look as professional. Obviously I have a skin on here from AlphaGuard, but again, which one looks more expensive and intimidating versus the other one? I mean, it's pretty, I don't know, makes sense to me. Part 4, creator features. So there's a lot of new features in here because there's an AI chip that they put in this. So before I go into what those features are, I don't want those features on my FX3. Why? Because when I'm on set and I'm getting paid to film these high stress jobs, I don't want to be going through more features and all these other things if I'm just trying to get the job done. I don't need those features if I'm filming a gig. So I'd rather keep all those features off my pro camera and have those features on my more vlogging, like BTS type camera. Like, personally, I like that Sony segments their cameras in this way because it's basically giving us the options to choose whatever perfect tool we need for that job. But I mean, even with that said, these cameras can perform both each other's jobs. It's just one's gonna be easier in other situations and the other's gonna be easier in the other situation. So some of those creator features, one, the auto reframing. I personally like to have control over that in post, but the way that it makes it look kind of makes it look like there's someone behind the camera tracking you, which is kind of cool. But think about all the creators out there. Again, guys, you have to remember, not every camera is made for you. Like, there's different cameras for different people. So I can imagine a lot of people would just die for that feature because think about it, if you're repurposing for horizontal and vertical use, the auto tracking is just going to make your life easier. You don't have to use any plugins or track it yourself. So the last thing I'll go over before I get into the negatives of this camera, let's talk about price. If you're someone that's been kind of saving up for a full frame FX3 camera, again, this thing's almost half the price. And so if you're someone that's just kind of getting into it and you're trying to get this camera just for content creation, I think you might be safe with this. Now let's go over the negatives. Overheating. I know there was a lot of people making a big fuss about the overheating on this. If you're someone that's going to be in a studio filming talking head stuff, from all the tests that I've seen, this thing goes long enough in 24 frames per second. If you're going to be filming 60 frames per second, I really don't know anyone that's shooting long form stuff in 60 frames per second. It's just kind of not a thing. The other thing is, if you're just getting this to vlog with, obviously you're not going to be holding this up for an hour waiting for it to overheat. You guys know I shoot a lot of desert stuff. I'm not someone that's going to go out and do overheating tests. I like to just actually use the camera and see what happens. And to be honest, most cameras that I've owned that had overheating problems, that were known for that, I never had overheating problems with it because I just don't use them in that way. Pretty much every manufacturer is having overheating issues because they're putting so much technology into these cameras. The little baby computers in here with sensors that get hot when you're filming with them. Again, who's this camera for? Just anybody who's doing content creation and wants the best quality that they can get out there right now for this price. Again, we're getting crazy ISO performance at 800 and 12,800. We're getting some of the best dynamic range you can get in a camera, some of the best autofocus you can get in a camera. We're getting one of the best internal mics you can get on a camera. You're getting some of the most compact full frame, setups that you can get on a camera. Third camera real quick. This is the new Sony a7C II. Sony's loaning me this for the next 2 weeks, and I think I might buy it actually after the loan period is up. Not the specific one. I think I want the silver one. But the reason I like this one a little bit more, I'll do a video on this, but this has a viewfinder on it, and this is kind of a hybrid between a photo and a video camera. With this is a 12 megapixels. I think this is like 32 or something like that, or 36. This is more dedicated to video. You can shoot photos on it, but this is going to be a better photo experience, and these things are pretty much the same price. Anyways, that's it.